What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett, quarterback Russell Wilson, and safety Justin Simmons as they spoke to the media today. Plus, I'll have the latest injury report, and Phil Milani joins the show. All that and more coming up. This week on Broncos Now, we're giving away a $100 gift card to the Denver Broncos team store. So make sure to enter for a chance to win on denverbroncos.com/podcast/Broncos Now. Now on to the top news of the day. The Broncos were back at practice here at the UC Health Training Center as they look to turn the page to face the Baltimore Ravens for their Week 13 matchup this Sunday. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett detailed his thoughts on the Ravens organization and the success they've had.
What Coach Harbaugh has done there, I mean, he's an amazing man from the starting point. I've gotten to talk with him just a couple times, and so much respect, admiration for him. And then you just look at the organization as a whole. How much success they've had continuously with different players throughout that, just their entire tenure there. I mean, they're a great organization. I mean, great coaching, great organization. They show it year in and year out, and so much respect for all of them.
And safety Justin Simmons added the threat that Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson and company will pose this Sunday.
It's tough. You know, obviously, I mean, he does it at a high level week in and week out. I can remember preparing, for that game last year and looking at all the exotic runs that they do and the personnels that they bring in. Obviously with, Mark Andrews at the tight end position, one of the best in the league to do it. We have our work cut out for us, especially the last few weeks, not being as sound in the run game, as we had weeks prior. And so we know what type of game it is. We got to come in, we got to stop the run, and it makes it that much harder when you have a quarterback that can create explosive runs, obviously in the run game as well. And that's not mentioning the drop back pass, where if the passes aren't there and our rush lanes aren't good enough, he could easily get out of there too. And so it's going to take all 11 of us. I always talk about how when you play teams like this, as talented as the Ravens are, it's almost like approaching like the triple option. Guys got to be locked in and gap sound, through every facet of your defense. And if you're not, it only takes those one or two plays of curiosity where, they can break a long explosive run. So, as a defense, we got to be able to stay on top of it.
There's been a lot of talk today around Russell Wilson and reports that he's losing the confidence of some of his teammates. But we heard from head coach Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson, and guard Dalton Reisner today, and they all said that it's just gossip.
That's just hilarious, in my opinion. That's funny because I don't think it's true. I know it's not true. I know who Russell is. I respect him so much. I respect the way he integrates within our locker room. And I feel like all year he hasn't been able to catch a break. People are just making up rumors about him, whether that be he's not a good teammate or he's lost the locker room, apparently, or whatever the heck it is. And a lot of it's just so outlandish to me because I get to see him work every day. I get to see how much he cares about the guys in the locker room and the devotion he has to this game and the attitude he brings to practice every day and the attitude he brings to the football field. We may not be having a good season. We may be 3-8, but I respect the heck out of Russell Wilson and the way he's leading this football team amongst everything he's had to deal with this year.
To me, it's all gossip. I mean, I know how this locker room, we have a fantastic locker room. When you look at a guy like Russ, I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, he works. I've never seen somebody work that hard. I've never seen somebody try to embrace a team like he has while he's here. I mean, just from everything that he does, from walkthroughs to helping. I mean, how he is in the community. I mean, Russ is awesome, and we just need to do better as a team. It's that simple, and all that stuff. It is what it is.
First of all, everybody wants to win. We all want to win, and nobody wants to win, more than me and this team and what we want to be able to do. I think also as well, I got great relationships in that locker room. So whoever is trying to tear it down, you can't. I think that the best thing about it is that it's been an amazing journey coming here, moving here, being here. Guys like Cortland Sutton, guys like Justin Simmons, guys like Dalton Reisner. Watching a guy like DJ Jones, I used to play against, several times a year. A tremendous football player. Different guys. Kendall Hinton, how he's stepped up and stepped in as a friend, and so much more. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, all these guys. I can go down the list. Sabi, the guys up front. This is a great team. And we got great players. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to play with this team and these guys. And so, there's always noise, especially when things aren't going the way that you want it to all the time. And so the thing is that you don't bat an eye. You know that my biggest goal every day is to continue to try to lead at the highest level, and to be consistent every day with my approach.
And last but not least, Dalton Reisner talked about where he wants to see the offensive line improve over the final 6 weeks of the season.
We want to start winning football games. That's the biggest thing. We want to start putting our foot forward to help us win those football games, help us get in the end zone whenever we're in the red zone. Let's score touchdowns. Let's not settle for field goals. Let's not settle for 50, 60-yard field goals. Let's get them in better positions to do so. When we get the run play called, let's make sure we capitalize on it. Let's put faith in everybody on that sideline and faith in everybody on that field that we can run the ball. Let's not put ourselves in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and long situations where we have to pass the ball and we're one-dimensional by the third quarter. So us as an offensive line, those are things we're focused on, man. We want to win football games. We want to get in the end zone. We want to score touchdowns. We want to pose our will in the run game. And if it does come to a position where we do have to pass the ball, we got to protect and keep them clean. Those are all very simple things. I'm sure you could have thought of those yourself, but football's a simple game, and we got to make sure we do the simple things right.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at the injury report. Linebacker Dakota Allen, fullback and tight end Andrew Beck, wide receiver KJ Hamler, defensive lineman Jonathan Harris, safety Kareem Jackson, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, defensive end Draymond Jones, and cornerback K'Wan Williams all did not participate at practice today. And guard Dalton Reisner was limited. Plus, the Broncos designated running back Mike Boone for return from injured reserve. So the Broncos will now have 21 days to activate Boone to the 53-man roster. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into today's news. So joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is fellow team reporter Phil Milani. Phil, always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining me again this week.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a
Absolutely.
pleasure.
It is always a pleasure.
Yes.
It's a fun Wednesday routine.
It is. I like it.
Well, Phil, a lot of news to get to today. Obviously, the big news of the day was, there were reports that came out yesterday that Russell Wilson was losing some of his teammates here in the locker room. We heard from several guys today, and they all said that that's just gossip. Absolutely not true, and quite frankly, pretty outlandish.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett said it was gossip. Russell Wilson said that he's got tremendous relationships inside the locker room.
Right.
He said that whoever's trying to tear those apart, they won't succeed. Justin Simmons didn't come out and completely deny it, but he just said that Russ is a leader in that locker room and everybody supports him. So that was sort of the gist of what Justin was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think obviously when there's winning and then there's losing the way the Broncos have lost, and then the defense looks good and the offense looks bad, there can tend to be some disruptions. And I think that Mike Purcell showing his frustration the other day on the sideline there, I think that really sort of brought it under the magnifying glass a little bit.
Right.
And it was something that we hadn't seen so far.
Oh, right.
And so I think that it makes sense for people to ask about this, to wonder what's going on. And now we're finding out, there's some reports, that he has lost the locker room. And then, but if you hear directly from the players, from Nathaniel Hackett, they say no. So
Absolutely. Right. And, we talked to Mike Purcell in the locker room today, and a reporter asked him about that. And he said that he's talked to Russell so many times since that incident, and they're both on the same page. They both, want to get going and want to win.
It's an emotional sport.
Yeah.
I think that ideally you wouldn't have a defensive player getting into Russ's face in the middle of a game like that.
Right.
But that's just sort of an example of where this Broncos team is right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Phil, we heard Coach Hackett talk about just the amount of criticism that, both he and Russell have really received this season. But, he said Russell's been doing a great job just putting his head down, getting back to work, gives him a ton of credit for that because, this year, being 3-8, this team has received a lot of criticism.
Yeah, rightfully so. This offense, we knew that it was going to take time for it to come together. We thought maybe there'd be some growing pains. I don't think anybody ever imagined that this would be one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. Go through all the categories. This is one of the worst offenses in all of the NFL. So I don't think that anybody saw that coming, could have predicted that. The expectations for this team were sky high this year. So the criticism, I think, is fair. And these guys know it, too. I mean, after the games recently, the last couple of weeks, both Nathaniel Hackett and Russ, they both said, look, we get it. We understand why people are upset, and we're upset, too. So I think that it makes sense.
Well, Phil, in other news, we found out on Tuesday that the Broncos, they've been flexed out of the Sunday night football game for week 14 matchup versus the Chiefs. We heard Coach Hackett talk about that a little bit earlier. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I thought that it was somewhat surprising just because Patrick Mahomes is probably the front runner for the MVP. They're the favorite to come out of the AFC right now, I would say, are the Chiefs. So anytime you could put a team like that and a player like that on prime time, usually you stick with him. But I guess that sort of shows you where the Broncos are right now. And plus the matchup that they chose, the Chargers and the Dolphins, that's a great matchup. And then obviously Tua and Justin Herbert, same draft class, a lot of comparison between those two at the quarterback position. So I guess that's sort of the juicier matchup right now. And I think that it was surprising because I know certainly from my perspective, Sid, at the beginning of the year, I was like, this is going to be the game of the year for the Broncos. You know, I thought definitely playoff seeding, maybe a chance to take a leg up in the division. Something like that. It's going to be prime time. It's going to be at home.
Right.
And it's just none of it really matters at this point.
Well, looking at this weekend, week 13 here, we heard earlier in the show from Justin Simmons just about how tough it is going to be to slow down Lamar Jackson in that offense. It's going to be a really tough one this weekend in Baltimore. Yeah,
I mean, Baltimore's coming off of a tough loss against Jacksonville. They're going to be motivated. It's going to be really tough. Lamar Jackson presents so many challenges. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. Sorry, Sid. Last year, the Broncos really said, okay, we're not going to let you beat us with your legs. And Lamar came into Denver and threw the ball all over the Broncos. Yeah. So he can really do it all out there. Just so talented and in multiple different looks, different ways that he could beat you, that it makes it really tough for this Broncos defense. A Broncos defense that is struggling a little bit right now.
Yeah, coming off not their best game of the season.
Yeah.
You know, Phil, some good news that came today. The Broncos designated running back Mike Boone to come off injured reserve. Obviously, he has that, 21-day window to kind of activate him to the 53-man roster. But what do you think it would mean maybe for this offense, for this run game, if they're able to get him back this weekend?
Yeah, that could be good. I mean, they need to get the run game going to help Russ out a little bit here. Sure. But I thought Latavius Murray actually played really well.
Right.
His best game as a Bronco, I would say. Definitely. Had that 50-plus yard run, the longest run of the season for the Broncos. That was certainly an encouraging sign there. But Mike Boone, one of the guys who could just sort of give you a different element in that running game, just a little bit of a burst, younger legs for sure. So maybe he could come in and just give him a little bit of a spark. But I thought that Latavius played really well last week, and he'll continue to be the main guy. But, I mean, anytime you could get a little bit healthier, get some guys back from IR, that's definitely a good thing.
Last one here for you, Phil. As the team was back at practice today, got to practice the next couple of days. What do you think is the mindset here as we got 6 games left of the season and a really tough one in Baltimore, like we said earlier? Yeah,
and a lot of distractions. I mean, whether or not they want to talk about it or not, reporters asking you tons of questions about the locker room and, where things stand there. That's a distraction. I mean, and having to stand up there and defend Russ week after week after week here, that just becomes tiresome, I think, for those guys. So I think that they're tired of talking about that. I think they would rather just talk about football. And it just seems like for this Broncos team, they're just in such a weird position because usually at this point in the year, maybe you'd be saying, okay, who are the young guys you want to, keep an eye on that you would be excited about their development down the stretch here and stuff. A lot of the Broncos players are hurt. And so the only real young guy that is getting a lot of valuable minutes right now is like a Greg Dulcich or a Jalen Virgil or Brandon Johnson, those kind of guys. So Damari Mathis, I think that's another good name there. So you want to keep an eye on those guys, but really so many guys are hurt that it's harder to do that, or at least guys that you get really excited about. So that's one thing. Or normally you just start to get excited about draft picks coming up or what next year's draft looks like and that kind of thing, especially as the college football season starts to wind down. But the Broncos, of course, don't have their own pick. So the combination of those two things make it kind of a bleak situation. But I do think that these guys are playing for pride. They want to go out there and they want to get wins. You want to see Russ start to turn it on a little bit, maybe. Certainly next week, can they beat a division rival like the Chiefs? Is there some way, somehow they could do that? Those are the things I think that you could kind of put your hook on and just sort of ride out the rest of the season. So,
well, still a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, just
be on the lookout for.
Yeah, if you could win a couple of these games here, maybe just end the season with a little bit of momentum, something like that, something positive to be like, hey, this season didn't go the way that you wanted it to, but at least you saw some sides down the stretch, or hey, at least they finished the last few games on a winning streak, something like that. I think that could go a long way heading into the offseason here.
Yep, I agree. Something to look forward to for next year.
Just something, something to hang your hat on a little bit.
Absolutely. So, well, Phil, always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much, Cindy. I wish that we were talking about better things.
I know, me too. But
but this is just how this season's gone, I think you just say it is what it is at this point.
I agree. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in today and every day. Don't forget to enter for a chance to win a $100 gift card to the Denver Broncos team store. You can find the form on denverbroncos.com/podcast/Broncos Now. I will meet you all right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow for another episode of Broncos Now. I'll see you all then.